Welcome, dear listeners. Today I invite you to listen to the story of a true genius, a man whose ideas forever changed the way humanity understands the universe. His name is Sir Isaac Newton. This story is not only about history, it is also designed to help you learn English through an inspiring and meaningful biography. As you listen, you will improve your English skills while discovering the life of one of the greatest scientists who ever lived. Let us begin. Isaac Newton was born on December 25, 1642, in a small village called Woolsthorpe, located in Lincolnshire, England. To understand his life, we must first imagine the world he was born into. At that time, there were no cars, no electricity, and no modern machines. Life was slow, quiet, and deeply connected to nature. Most people lived in rural areas and depended on farming to survive. Isaac's family lived on a small farm. His father, also named Isaac Newton, was a farmer. However, there is a tragic detail about Isaac's birth. His father passed away 3 months before Isaac was born. Because of this, Isaac never met his father, not even once. His mother, Hannah Asko, was left to raise her child alone. Life was extremely difficult for Hannah. She had to manage the farm while also caring for her newborn baby. Isaac was born prematurely, meaning he was born earlier than expected. He was very small and weak, and many people believed he would not survive. In fact, some thought it was only a matter of time before he died. But Isaac proved to be stronger than anyone imagined. He survived, slowly grew healthier, and although he remained physically fragile, his mind was already forming in remarkable ways. As Isaac grew older, he became known as a quiet and thoughtful child. He did not speak much and preferred observing the world around him rather than interacting with others. When Isaac was 3 years old, his life changed once again. His mother remarried a wealthy man named Barnabas Smith. However, Barnabas did not want Isaac to live with them. As a result, young Isaac was sent away to live with his grandparents. This separation deeply affected him. Being separated from his mother at such a young age made Isaac feel lonely and abandoned. He grew up without the warmth of a close family, and this experience shaped his personality for life. Living with his grandparents, Isaac became a shy and introverted boy. He spent much of his time alone, but instead of feeling bored or lost, he turned his loneliness into creativity. While other children played together, Isaac preferred building things. He created small mechanical toys, wooden tools, and even miniature windmills. These early inventions showed his natural curiosity and his desire to understand how things work. Isaac attended a local village school where he showed some interest in reading and learning. Although he was not considered exceptional at first, teachers noticed that he was thoughtful and observant. When Isaac turned 12, he was sent to the King's School in Grantham, a nearby town. Because the school was too far from his home to travel daily, Isaac lived with a local family during the school year. At first, Isaac struggled at school. He showed little interest in his lessons, and his academic performance was average. He was not the top student in his class, and many people believed he would live an ordinary life. But everything changed after a single incident. One day, Isaac was bullied by another boy at school. Instead of responding with violence, Isaac made a powerful decision. He decided to prove that he was superior, not in physical strength, but in intelligence. From that moment on, his attitude completely changed. Isaac became deeply focused on his studies. He worked harder than anyone else in his class. He read constantly and pushed himself to understand difficult ideas. Over time, he transformed into one of the best students at the school. Reading became Isaac's greatest passion. He studied books about science, mathematics, and astronomy. In his free time, he carefully observed nature, the movement of water, the behavior of light, and the patterns he saw in the world around him. At the time, these were just curiosities, but in the future, these simple observations would lead to revolutionary discoveries. At the age of 14, another major event occurred. Isaac's stepfather, Barnabas Smith, passed away. After his death, Isaac's mother decided to bring him back to Woolsthorpe. She wanted him to become a farmer just like his father. However, Isaac had no interest in farming. He found it dull and unchallenging. Instead of working the land, Isaac spent his time reading books and building mechanical tools. He preferred thinking, designing, and experimenting over physical labor. Fortunately, Isaac's intelligence did not go unnoticed. His uncle, Reverend William A. Scow, recognized that Isaac was gifted. He believed Isaac was destined for something far greater than farming. With his uncle's support, Isaac returned to school. This decision changed his life. Isaac worked tirelessly and impressed his teachers with his dedication and ability. His progress was so remarkable that it became clear he was meant for higher education. By the time Isaac was 18 years old, he was ready for the next major step in his life. He was admitted to Trinity College at the University of Cambridge. This moment marked the true beginning of his journey toward greatness. At that time, Cambridge focused on philosophy, religion, and basic sciences. However, the world itself was changing. New ideas about the universe were spreading across Europe. This period became known as the Scientific Revolution, and Isaac Newton would soon become one of its most important figures. At Cambridge, Isaac faced financial difficulties. To support himself, he worked as a servant. He cleaned rooms, served meals, and assisted other students. Life was not easy, but Isaac did not complain. He loved learning, and he devoted nearly all his time to study. His favorite subjects were mathematics, astronomy, and physics. He studied the works of famous thinkers such as René Descartes and Galileo Galilei. But Isaac did not simply accept their ideas. He questioned them, challenged them, and tried to understand the universe in his own way. One of his favorite activities was observing the night sky. He often wondered how planets moved and why objects always fell toward the ground. These questions stayed with him and would later lead to his greatest discoveries. In 1665, when Isaac was 23 years old, a deadly disease known as the Great Plague spread across England. To protect students and staff, Cambridge University was closed. Isaac was forced to return to his family home in Woolsthorpe. What seemed like a setback became one of the most important periods of his life. Away from university responsibilities, Isaac had time to think deeply and freely. He later referred to this time as his year of wonders. During this period, Isaac conducted experiments and explored new ideas. One day, while sitting beneath an apple tree, he watched an apple fall to the ground. This simple event triggered a profound question in his mind. Why does the apple fall straight down instead of sideways or upward? From this question, Isaac realized that the same force pulling the apple to the ground might also control the motion of the moon and the planets. He called this force gravity. This insight became the foundation of his law of universal gravitation. At the same time, Isaac began developing calculus, a new branch of mathematics that explains motion, change, and speed. This work would later become one of his most important contributions to science. Imagine a young man alone in the countryside creating ideas that would shape the future of humanity. When the Great Plague finally ended in 1667, Isaac Newton returned to Cambridge University. By this time, his intellectual abilities were impossible to ignore. He was elected as a Fellow of Trinity College, a position given only to scholars recognized for exceptional talent and promise. This honor confirmed that Isaac was no longer just a student. He was now considered one of the most brilliant thinkers at the university. 2 years later, in 1669, at only 27 years old, Isaac achieved something extraordinary. He was appointed Lucasian Professor of Mathematics, one of the most prestigious academic positions in all of England. This role had previously been held by some of the greatest mathematicians of the time, and Isaac's appointment showed how highly his work was respected. Despite his new position, Isaac did not enjoy teaching large groups of students. He was not a charismatic speaker, nor did he seek attention. Instead, he preferred working quietly, alone, deeply focused on his research. His mind was constantly exploring new ideas, and he spent long hours building instruments, performing experiments, and writing detailed notes about his discoveries. Around this time, Isaac turned his attention to a subject that fascinated him deeply: light. He wanted to understand its true nature. Using a simple glass prism, he conducted a series of experiments that led to a groundbreaking discovery. Isaac found that white light is not a single, pure substance. Instead, it is made up of many different colors. When white light passes through a prism, it separates into red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, forming a rainbow. This discovery completely transformed the scientific understanding of light and color. Before Newton, many people believed that colors were somehow added to light by objects. Isaac proved that colors already exist within light itself. His work in optics changed science forever and laid the foundation for modern studies of vision and color. Not satisfied with theory alone, Isaac also worked on practical inventions. He built the first reflecting telescope, which used mirrors instead of lenses. This design made the telescope smaller, more powerful, and more accurate than previous models. When Isaac presented his telescope to the scientific community, it gained immediate attention and admiration. This invention brought Isaac widespread recognition. Scientists across England and Europe began to see him not just as a thinker, but as an innovator and experimenter of the highest level. By his early 30s, Isaac Newton had established himself as one of the most brilliant minds of his generation. His work in mathematics, optics, and physics was revolutionary. However, despite his growing fame, Isaac remained a very private person. He did not like sharing his ideas quickly. He was a perfectionist and believed that every detail of his work had to be flawless before it was revealed to the world. This cautious nature sometimes slowed the publication of his discoveries, but it also ensured their extraordinary quality. Isaac avoided public attention and preferred working in isolation. Yet events were about to force him out of the shadows. During this period, another scientist named Robert Hooke was studying the motion of planets. Hooke believed that a force similar to gravity might explain how planets move around the sun. However, his ideas were incomplete and lacked mathematical proof. When Isaac learned about Hooke's claims, he became deeply interested. Isaac had already developed his own theory of gravity years earlier, but he had never published it. Now, challenged by Hooke's ideas, Isaac decided it was time to present his work to the world. He began working with intense focus. Day and night, Isaac refined his calculations. He carefully analyzed how gravity affects objects on Earth, the Moon, and the planets. His work demonstrated something revolutionary. Gravity is not limited to Earth. It is a universal force that governs the entire cosmos. After years of careful work, Isaac was finally ready. In 1687, at the age of 45, he published his masterpiece, Philosophia Naturalis Principia Mathematica, commonly known as the Principia. This book changed the world. In the Principia, Isaac introduced the three laws of motion, which explained how objects move. First, an object at rest will remain at rest, and an object in motion will continue moving in a straight line unless acted upon by an external force. Second, the greater the force applied to an object, the greater the change in its motion. Third, for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. In addition to these laws, the Principia presented the law of universal gravitation, proving mathematically that gravity controls the motion of planets, moons, and objects on Earth. The Principia was not just a scientific book, it was a turning point in human history. Scientists, philosophers, and even kings across Europe were astonished by its brilliance. Newton became famous almost overnight. Yet despite his global recognition, Isaac's personality remained unchanged. He was still quiet, serious, and deeply focused. He rarely smiled and preferred solitude. He could spend hours, even days, working on a single problem without rest. His perfectionism was both his greatest strength and his greatest weakness. It produced flawless work, but it also led to conflicts. Isaac disliked criticism and often argued fiercely with anyone who challenged his ideas. Nevertheless, his influence on science was undeniable. The universe itself now seemed to follow the rules he had uncovered. In 1696, Isaac Newton made a surprising decision that shocked many people. He accepted a new position as Warden of the Royal Mint, the institution responsible for producing coins in England. At first glance, this role seemed unrelated to science. However, England was facing a serious economic problem at the time. Counterfeit coins were widespread and fake money was damaging the economy. The Royal Mint was inefficient and corruption was common. Isaac brought the same discipline, logic, and precision he used in science to this new role. Newton approached the problem like a detective. He personally investigated counterfeiters, collected evidence, questioned suspects, and even sent criminals to trial. Under his leadership, the coinage system was completely reformed. New, higher-quality coins were introduced, and counterfeiting dramatically decreased. Isaac proved that his genius extended far beyond mathematics and physics. Because of his success, Newton was promoted to Master of the Royal Mint, a position he held for the rest of his life. This role also provided him with financial security, something he had never truly experienced before. In 1703, Newton reached another major milestone. He was elected President of the Royal Society, the most prestigious scientific organization in England. This position confirmed his status as the greatest scientist of his era. As president, Newton influenced the direction of scientific research and supported the advancement of knowledge across Europe. A year later, in 1704, Newton published another major work titled Optics. In this book, he explained his discoveries about light and color in greater detail. He also explored deeper questions about the nature of matter, space, and the universe. Optics showed that even after his greatest achievements, Newton's curiosity had not faded. In 1705, Newton received one of the highest honors possible. Queen Anne knighted him, giving him the title Sir Isaac Newton. This recognition was rare for a scientist and demonstrated how deeply his work was valued by society as a whole, not just by scholars. As Newton grew older, his life began to change. By the early 1700s, he was no longer the young scientist working endlessly in isolation. In his 60s, Newton was widely regarded as a living legend. However, fame brought new challenges. Many admired him, but others envied him. Disputes over credit and recognition became more frequent. One of the most famous conflicts in scientific history involved Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, a German mathematician. Both Newton and Leibniz had independently developed calculus. When Leibniz published his work, Newton's supporters accused him of copying Newton's ideas. This led to a bitter and long-lasting rivalry. Newton, being deeply perfectionistic and stubborn, took these accusations very personally. The conflict damaged relationships within the scientific community and took an emotional toll on Newton. He spent years defending his legacy and reputation. Although the dispute was painful, it highlighted his intense determination to protect his work and his belief in intellectual integrity. Despite these conflicts, Newton also played a positive role as a mentor. In his later years, many young scientists came to him seeking guidance. Newton shared his knowledge but maintained very high standards. He believed that true progress required discipline, patience, and relentless curiosity. One of his most famous quotes reflects this belief. "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." With these words, Newton acknowledged the contributions of great thinkers who came before him. He understood that scientific progress is a collective effort, even though he himself often worked alone. Newton spent his final years in London. He lived comfortably, respected by society, and admired by scholars. He never married and had no children. Instead, he devoted his time to studying the Bible, reflecting on philosophy, and continuing his research. Even in old age, Newton's mind remained sharp. He often shared stories of his discoveries and challenges with visitors. He wanted younger generations to understand the importance of perseverance, curiosity, and dedication. On March 20th, 1727, Isaac Newton passed away at the age of 84. His death marked the end of an extraordinary life. Yet his legacy was only beginning. Isaac Newton's contributions to science and mathematics transformed humanity's understanding of the universe. His laws of motion and gravity became the foundation of modern physics, engineering, and astronomy. Calculus became an essential tool for scientists, engineers, and economists. His work in optics revolutionized our understanding of light, color, and vision. Newton's influence extended far beyond science. He inspired countless individuals to think differently, work harder, and never stop asking questions. His life proved that curiosity, discipline, and resilience can change the world. Isaac Newton's story is not just a scientific biography. It is a story about the human spirit. There are powerful lessons we can learn from his life. First, curiosity is the key to discovery. Newton's simple questions when why apples fall, why planets move, led to world-changing ideas. Second, hard work matters more than talent. Newton was not born a genius, he became one through relentless effort. Third, failure is part of success. Newton faced criticism, conflict, and setbacks, but he never gave up. Fourth, humility is strength. Despite his fame, Newton recognized the contributions of others and honored the thinkers who came before him. More than 300 years after his death, Newton's ideas continue to shape our world. Every rocket launch, every machine, and every study of the stars builds upon his work. His life reminds us that a single person, driven by determination and vision, can create a legacy that lasts for centuries. Greatness does not come easily. It requires dedication, resilience, and the courage to think differently. Let Isaac Newton's journey inspire you to work hard, stay curious, and always aim for the stars. Newton began life as a small, fragile boy on a farm, yet he dared to dream big. If he could overcome his challenges, so can you. The world is waiting for your ideas, your creativity, and your brilliance. Never stop because of fear. Never quit because something is difficult. Keep going, so because one day your story may inspire others.